It's a hell of a thing, killing a man. You take away all he's got.
What did Clint Eastwood have to do to make it on the list of Hollywood's best directors?
It wasn't just a lot of shooting people off the top of buildings.
Why would Kevin Costner put his life in danger just to direct a movie?
Conventional wisdom is something that I've never really bought into.
And why did Mel Gibson decide to direct a long shot instead of a guaranteed hit action movie?
You know, you wouldn't just do it for the sake of doing it. You'd have to have a story that would inspire you.
Three of Hollywood's leading men move behind the camera on the role that changed my life.
I'm a work in progress. Everything. Not just another pretty face. They made me an offer I couldn't refuse. To take the road that changed my life.
And I'm here to kill you, little Bill. For what you did to Ned.
How did this Hollywood cowboy, known for his menacing squint, become an Oscar-winning director? The answer is in the role that changed his life.
I always have a saying on the set, I don't want to hear anybody's voice but my own.
Clint Eastwood worked as a lumberjack, a forest firefighter, and a steelworker until he was drafted. When he got out, he and some of his army buddies moved to Los Angeles to try acting.
My first job as an actor was a contract player at Universal, and I went under contract and sort of was a general contract player, and I got $75 a week.
He ended up getting some roles in a few B movies, but they ended up letting him go a year and a half later.
He had a little more success when he was cast as Rowdy Yates in the TV series Rawhide.
Italian director Sergio Leone saw Clint in Rawhide and wanted him to play the man with no name in A Fistful of Dollars.
The critics of that time were saying, well, who's this upstart and what's he doing in this and what's the idea? How dare these Italians make an American Western film? And who's this television actor hanging out?
Henry Fonda and Charles Bronson had both turned it down.
A Fistful called the very first spaghetti Western, but there were dozens before it. It was just the first to get noticed in the States.
For a few dollars more, and The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly completed the trilogy.
You butcher! I'll kill you! I'll kill you!
Such ingratitude after all the times I've saved your life.
He became known for playing a really tough cowboy, but ironically, Clint's allergic to horses.
Clint spent the next few years working for influential directors like Dirty Harry's Don Siegel, watching closely in hopes of directing his own feature. Then, Clint got a hold of a thriller called Play Misty for Me.
He told Universal that he wanted to direct it, and they actually agreed to it, but it was on the condition that Clint star in the movie for free.
He finished the first movie not only under budget, but under time.
If a film costs $20 million and looks like it cost 10, then you're a failure. If it costs $10 million and looks like it cost 20, then that's quite successful.
Clint is known for making movies efficiently.
And then when I started directing films, people are going, we're not sure we accept him as an actor. What's he doing now? He's going to direct films.
Coming up, how does Clint Eastwood use a brutal Western to de-glorify violence?
Killed just about everything that walks or crawled at one time or another.
Why don't you watch where you're going? Oh, look at this. It's ruined.
There's no need for all that.
All what?
If you want to get acquainted, why don't you just say so?
By the early 1990s, Clint Eastwood had been starring in his own movies for 2 decades.
When he wasn't directing himself, he would get these directors who would give in and do whatever he wanted. And if they didn't do that, he'd fire them and take it over.
It happened so often, the Directors Guild came up with the Eastwood rule that said actors weren't allowed to fire their directors and then take over.
Say what?
Clint's career hit a turning point when he was ready to produce a script that was originally optioned by Francis Ford Coppola. It was about an ex-gunslinger tormented by his violent past.
Well, I guess they had it coming. We all have it coming, kid.
Clint bought the script for Unforgiven years earlier, but waited for just the right time to star in the film.
And I nurtured it as like a little jewel. I love the script so much, but I thought it was something I would sort of age in. I thought it was something that should be played at a certain time in my life.
It's a hell of a thing, killing a man. You take away all he's got.
It also had a statement about the morality of killing too, and the consequences.
There's absolutely no heroes in Unforgiven. Every single man has his demons.
Including Clint's character, who sets out on this mission to redeem himself, but in the end of the story, he goes back to his old violent ways.
I like the variations of the various characters, and the fact that every character had a point of view and felt that they were doing the right thing.
Clint handpicked his co-stars for the movie.
Gene Hackman initially turned down the role of Little Bill because he was concerned about how violent this movie could be.
And even though he was the lawman, he was the most ruthless and sadistic character in the entire movie.
All right, gentlemen. He's got one barrel left. When he fires that, take out your pistols and shoot him down like the mangy scoundrel he is.
I needed someone who was really a very, very congenial, because in his mind, he's absolutely correct.
Clint has been a lifelong supporter of gun control, so he agreed to make the film as anti-gun as possible so Gene would sign on.
It took far less negotiating to convince Richard Harris to play the role of pompous gunman English Bob.
Clint was a fan of Richard's previous work in movies like Camelot and The Field.
I gave him a call, and it was an odd thing because when I talked to the housekeeper, I said, this is Clint Eastwood calling, and there was a long, long wait.
I'm watching High Plains Drifter for about the 15th time. I love the Westerns, okay? And he called me as I'm watching his film.
Then Clint signed his friend Morgan Freeman to play Ned Logan, his character's buddy and former partner.
All right, so what these fellas do? Cheated cards? Steal some strays? Spit on a rich fella? What?
No, they cut up a woman.
What?
I suspect that even if we hated each other, we'd be able to pull off the scene correctly. That's the way it's written. Turns out we don't hate each other. Turns out we like each other a lot.
I've killed women and children. Killed just about everything that walks or crawled at one time or another.
Unforgiven won Best Picture and Best Director at the Academy Awards. Clint was also nominated for Best Actor.
I'm not doing films for awards. I'm doing them because I enjoy doing them.
Even though he's qualified for a senior's discount for over 2 decades, Clint is busy. He continues to direct himself, and he's even added a couple more Oscars to his collection.
You know, I learned something on every movie. I think you learn something on every movie you make. You learn something new about people, about yourself, or about movie making, and that's what's fun about it. That's why you keep doing it over the years, and as you never think of retiring from it.
Coming up next, why did Kevin Costner lose half his paycheck for his directorial debut?
You kind of wonder, you go, wow, am I the only person here?
And what did Mel Gibson and William Wallace have in common?
Here are Scotland's terms. Lower your flag and march straight back to England.
You there!
Why was Kevin Costner so passionate about shedding new light on the Native Americans of the Old West? The answer is in the role that changed his life.
People can be leaders without ever having to be heroic. It's just time and circumstance dictate what somebody has to do.
When he was a kid, Kevin Costner wanted to be Burt Lancaster in Gunfight at the OK Corral. He practiced by jumping off the couch to tackle his dog.
Well, I love Western, and I think that it just takes a real smart filmmaker to make Westerns.
One of his favorite movies was How the West Was Won.
He saw it for the first time at a birthday party when he was 7. Jimmy Stewart was canoeing in the wilderness, and right then, Kevin knew that was the life he wanted.
He became really interested in nature, the wilderness, and American history.
Americans are kind of rootless in a way. We don't really know what our center is.
Kevin studied marketing and finance at college, but he was always interested in acting.
He married his childhood sweetheart, Cindy Silva, and then they're on the way back from their honeymoon on the plane, and who does he spot but Richard Burton?
Richard said if he wanted to get into the biz, he had to go after it, 110%.
Kevin actually took his advice. He quit his job, started taking acting lessons, and it worked out for him.
One of the first movies Kevin ever worked on was called Stacy's Nights.
It was in India about gambling in Reno, and it was written by an unknown named Michael Blake.
Michael told Kevin an idea he had for a story about Native Americans, and Kevin loved it. He encouraged Michael to turn it into a novel.
Welcome. Welcome. Hi.
Michael Blake wrote the story Dances with Wolves as a wedding present for his friend Viggo Mortensen. But Kevin bought the screen rights and decided to direct and star in the movie himself.
Everybody thought Kevin was insane to want to make this 3-hour-long movie with subtitles, tons of first-time actors, 3,000+ buffalo, and he hadn't even directed before.
I have a theory that everybody could be wrong, too. So conventional wisdom is something that I've never really bought into.
Kevin's priority as a director and a producer was to get rid of any stereotypes you normally see in Westerns. That included how Native Americans were represented.
What's it going to you? Here.
No serious Western had ever shown natives joking around before.
They portray us as we truly were, as we truly are, even though we are on reservations now. That's the way we are at home, the way, laughing, joking.
Kevin had the strong conviction that it was going to be in Lakota with subtitles. Everybody went, "Oh no, where do you think you are in France?"
It wasn't important to me to do that. It was just functional for the movie. We're talking about people that can't communicate.
To teach his actors to speak Lakota, he brought in Doris Ledercharge, one of only about 1,000 people still fluent in the language.
And our language is our culture, because our language has a lot of meaning behind it.
Our language is the Lakota language, the Native American tongue. And before coming here, I knew virtually nothing.
Tonka?
No, I haven't seen any buffalo.
The buffalo hunt scene would have been daunting for a veteran director, but being a rookie worked in Kevin's favor.
That's the benefit of not knowing anything, because what can scare you if you don't know anything?
He found this ranch in North Dakota that had over 3,000 head of buffalo, and he used them to create a stampede for that great scene.
I don't know, man. That's the page said buffalo hunt, and that's what I thought I should do.
Start to back up.
Keeping the story historically accurate was costly, and Kevin ran over budget and over schedule.
Rumors were spreading that Kevin's directorial debut was turning into a disaster.
Instead, he started cutting things out of the script.
Up here, Mother!
Instead, he took a pay cut, giving up half his $5 million fee to finance the rest of the movie.
Kevin has said the two biggest sins of America are slavery and moving the Native Americans off their land.
You look at this country that we had to have, there's still nobody here, and the people that truly knew how to use it, how to control it ecologically and every other way socially, they're not here anymore.
This was one of the first films done in Hollywood that showed Native Americans in a positive light and showed them realistically.
Dances with Wolves was nominated for 12 Oscars and won 7, including Best Picture and Best Director for Kevin.
Some actors even said that as a director, Kevin did more for the Native Americans than the government did in 200 years.
I just try to find behavior. I think people respond to that, can laugh at that, can be afraid of it. I have a pretty simple approach to things.
Coming up, Mel Gibson re-historical event, but does he have his facts straight?
If we join, we can win. If we win, well, then we'll have what none of us have ever had before. A country of our own. They may take our lives, but they'll never take our freedom!
How did making a film about a 13th century warrior help Mel Gibson reconnect with his spirituality?
I don't believe that you actually live anybody else's life. I think you're just enacting an aspect of your own life.
Mel Gibson was the 6th of 11 children. People think he's Australian because of his accent, but he was actually born in New York.
Mel lived in the United States until he was 12.
His dad worked on the railway, and he was injured on the job and got that.
They decided to take the compensation money and start a new life.
He'd injured himself on his job and retrained and sort of won Jeopardy, and then his mother was from Australia. We went to Australia.
Mel's father, Hutton, was a Catholic traditionalist, so Mel went to a strict Christian school. But he rebelled against the rules and started getting into trouble.
He was constantly getting into fights at school because he was being teased about his American accent.
Once Mel graduated, he considered becoming a journalist, but his sister Sheila thought he was funny and could make it as an actor. Secretly, she enrolled him at the National Institute of Dramatic Arts, and he was accepted.
It took Mel a while to take his acting classes seriously because he was all about the party lifestyle.
In 1979, Mel was still getting into trouble, which actually helped him land his breakout role in Mad Max.
Mel had gotten this audition and then decided to, go out partying the night before.
He got into a fight, and then he shows up to this audition, black and blue and with stitches in his head.
I guess they really liked the freshly beaten up look because he got the part.
After Mad Max became a hit in the U.S., Mel moved back and became a big star.
Mel married a Catholic dental assistant. Her name was Robin Moore, and the two of them had 7 children together. But unfortunately, that did not stop him from acting like a teenager the minute he stepped out of the house.
He had made all this money, he had a family, he basically had everything you'd ever want, but he was still unfulfilled. So he decided to try directing.
When you go down, your eyes peel on me.
Mel directed Man Without a Face, about a former teacher who becomes a recluse when he's lost in a fire.
Have a good look. Get it over with, and we'll continue. Enough?
It was a complete departure for Mel.
He said the message he wanted to get across is that people are not what they seem.
It could be argued that he was talking about himself.
Mel really wanted to be a better husband, so he turned to his faith.
His religious ideas were very strong, as were his views on Hollywood, and he started to express them in his interviews.
He would complain about the paparazzi because they followed him everywhere.
I have been involved in high-speed chases on the freeway by people that wanted to get even for something that they'd read.
But directing seemed to provide Mel what he needed as an artist to share his vision of the world.
We have beaten the English. We'll come back. Because you won't stand together. What will you do? I will invade England and defeat the English on their own ground.
In 1995, Mel was offered the lead in Braveheart. Working on the movie,
Mel Gibson originally said no to playing William Wallace because he thought he was too old. But in order to direct the movie, he also had to star in it.
Here are Scotland's terms. Lower your flags and march straight back to England, stopping at every home you pass by to beg forgiveness for 100 years of theft, rape, and murder. Do that, and your men shall live.
Mel brings a lot of passion to this character because the Gibsons, of course, were Scottish, and his heritage was starting to matter to him more and more.
Mel was a rebel, and he related to Wallace and his desire to free Scotland from the Brits.
William Wallace was a very passionate Christian, and through playing him, Mel was really able to connect with his own spirituality.
After years of rebelling against his religious background, he was finally able to indulge in his father's traditional Catholic values.
Braveheart won 5 Oscars, including Best Director and Best Picture.
The movie was based on William Wallace's 13th century battle, but it's said to be a bit inaccurate.
The real William Wallace was like 6'7" and had this gigantic sword. And I don't know, Mel Gibson's like what, 5'10"?
One of the fight scenes Mel was supposed to recreate was the Battle of the Stirling Bridge.
But he left out the bridge altogether because instead he wanted this big dramatic scene with horses charging.
Braveheart was really the start of what has been a controversial but really successful production career for Mel.
Mel went on to write and direct Passion of the Christ and Apocalypto.
He says he doesn't want to be a movie star anymore. Now his passion's in filmmaking.
He's a child, but he was great. He was wonderful. He had a vast amount of energy on this film, which kept everyone going. I mean, he was director, producer, actor, everything, but he managed to drive this film through to the bitter end.
I always enjoy working, even if it's a difficult mob you're with. I mean, the enjoyment is getting around that. And that can be very difficult at times, but there's an enjoyment in solving the puzzle.
Clint Eastwood, Kevin Costner, Mel Gibson. 3 actors who move behind the camera on The Role That Changed My Life.